Good evening, dear presidents, council members, relatives of late engineer B.D. Rampala, members, guests, ISL staff members. You all are welcome to the engineer B.D. Rampala Memorial Oration. Now, kindly stand for President's procession. Now I kindly invite following dignitaries to light the traditional oil lamp. Please stand. Please remain standing. Engineer Dr. Kamal Laksiri, President IESL. Engineer Professor Ranjit Disanayaka, President-elect of IESL. Engineer KPIU Dharmapala, the immediate past President of the IESL. Two senior-most past Presidents, Engineer Pial de Silva, Engineer Chula de Silva. Engineer Mangala Yapa, our speaker today. Mrs. Ranjani Pereira, daughter of late engineer B.D. Rampala. Engineer Ruwanna Gahawatha, Chairman Mechanical Engineering Sectional Committee, and Neela Besekar, myself. Thank you very much. Please remain standing. Now I cordially invite our President, Engineer Dr. Kamal Laksiri, to garland the portrait of late engineer B.D. Rampala. Thank you very much. Kindly be seated. I have forgotten to welcome our members and other guests who are joining online. This particular event is telecast, not telecast, of course, whatever the word, webcast, live. Now I invite our President, Engineer Dr. Kamal Laksiri, our Speaker, Engineer Mangala Yapa, and Engineer Ruwanna Gahawatha, Chairman Mechanical Engineering Sectional Committee, to the stage. Thank you very much. To start the proceedings, let me invite our President, Dr. Kamal Laksiri, to give away the welcome address. What do you say?
Good evening to all of you. We have gathered here to commemorate late engineer B.D. Rampala, an engineering giant of our country. And this is the first memorial oration we have for this session, new session 2022-23. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the Engineer B.D. Rampala Memorial Oration. ISL, the apex body for professional engineers in Sri Lanka, conducts series of memorial lectures in memory of engineering giants who have rendered a momentous contribution to the engineering field and the development of the country. Today, we have organized this event to commemorate the 112th birth anniversary of Engineer B.D. Rampala, the railway giant of our country. This event is organized by the Mechanical Engineering Sectional Committee of ISL. And actually, this is the 20th event organized by ISL. And today we have the initiate of this event, past President Engineer Priyadi Silva. It is during his tenure, we started this series of oration started by the ISL. Let me now welcome you all formally. Our guest speaker today, Engineer Y.B. Mangalayapa, Executive Director, Lanka Data Foundation, family members of the late Engineer B.D. Rampala, past presidents, council members, Engineer Ruwan Nagahawatha, Chairman of the Mechanical Engineering Sectional Committee, and the members of the organizing committee of this memorial oration, Engineer Neil Abesakara, CEO of the ISL, and Engineer R.B.M. Gunawardena, Deputy Executive Secretary, and staff members of the ISL, and now members who are joining in person and online. We have a number of members joining online today in this event. Ladies and gentlemen, history is replete with people whose initiatives revolutionize the way people live. Civilization itself is a cumulative result of initiatives of such people who had the courage and perseverance to see their convictions through. One such individual is B.D. Rampala, who became the first native chief mechanical engineer of the then Ceylon government railways. We call it Sri Lanka Railways at present. And then he went on to become the general manager during the period 1955 to 1970. The name of the Ceylon Government Railways, CGR, and the name of former General Manager Railways, Engineer B.D. Rampala, are interwoven, and the people who talk about the glorious days of the CGR still remember him as an unmatched personality. The single-day journey from Mathur to Badulla, the many long-distance express trains and signaling system were among the great works stand to Engineer B.D. Rampala's credit. It is who came up with the nomenclature of express services such as Ruhunu Kumari, Udarata Menike, Yal Devi, Uttara Devi, Uday Devi, Muthukumari, Samudra Devi, and Podimenike. Bamunu Arachige Don Rampala, B.D. Rampala, was born on 14th November 1910 and grew up at his ancestral home in Moraketi, Panipitiya. He received his education initially at the English Mixed School in Kottawa. Then he went to Nalanda College, Colombo, and completed his senior Cambridge examination at Ananda College. Mr. Rampala entered the Colombo University College and completed his examinations in pure mathematics, applied mathematics and physics. After a few months industrial training attached to police department, that is in 1931, he joined the Railway Mechanical Engineering Department of the then Ceylon Government Railways as a special apprentice. He sat and passed the Bachelor of Science degree of the University of London as an external candidate in 1933. He then got qualified as an engineer on private study by obtaining the associate membership of the Institution of Mechanical Engineers, London, in October 1935. Engineer B.D. Rampala was appointed Chief Mechanical Engineer of CGR in 1949, the first Ceylonese for the post. In 1955, he became General Manager of Railways at the age of 45, a position he was to hold for 14 years up until his retirement in the late 1960s. He was the General Manager Railways, having served the second longest term in the office. Engineer Rampala was elected the president of this prestigious institution, IESL, in 1958. In fact, this was the year the bus industry was nationalized, and on the year marked the centenary of Ceylon Government Railways. He was also instrumental in establishing the Ceylon Transport Board with others. In Sri Lanka, steam locomotives made their debut in the 1860s at the behest of British colonists, tea and coffee growers, unable to cope with transport demands of their increasing export trade. Angurukaka Waturubibi Kolabadunayaka, as the natives of that time called, it aptly described its size and voracious appetite for coal and water while belching smoke with its characteristic hissing noise. It reigned supreme for almost a century, but then mankind was impatient for better comfort and quicker pace of life. We Sri Lankans were no exception, and as fate would have it, the son of the soil, Engineer B.D. Rampala, took up the reins of the railways of the country and delivered on them. Much have been written of this doyen of Sri Lanka railways and the strict discipline with which he managed. He made his proposal to dieselize the Sri Lankan railways. As a result, in 1953, the first batch of diesel locomotives arrived from Brush of the United Kingdom. When the locomotives were started faulting, Engineer Rampala made modifications to them. When inspected by the British designers, his modifications were approved and not challenged against their original design. He submitted a paper on his observations to the Institution of Locomotive Engineers in London, which gave him full praise. Engineer Rampala sought to upgrade the railways. In the mid-1950s, he launched express trains to shorten journey times to major destinations. Named trains like the Yaldevi and the Udaratamaniki were launched under his leadership. When he launched the Colombo Mathura Ruhun Kumari train service in October 1955, it was Engineer Rampal himself who drove the train from Colombo to Mathura. Until the 1950s, CGR operated entirely with a lock and block signaling system. This is to say about his contribution to the signaling system. Engineer Rampal introduced electronic color signaling for the busiest portions of the railways in 1959. Train movements could then be controlled by a centralized traffic control panel at Maradana, greatly improving the safety. In 1956, the Institution of Locomotive Engineers in London recognized the Rampala as the best diesel engineer in Asia. In addition to improving safety on the CGR, Engineer Rampala has been remembered for his mark on culture. He created the Yaldevi train connecting Colombo, the capital, and Jaffna. In doing so, he created the cultural icon that helping to transcend any divisions between North and South. This great engineer died on 20th June 1994 at the age of 84 after rendering a great service to the nation. So with that brief introduction to great engineer B.D. Rampala, let me welcome all of you to this memorial oration today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President. Now let me introduce our speaker today, Engineer Mangalayapa. Engineer Mangalayapa is a versatile and accomplished professional with a proven track record in organizational transformation, capacity building, and business development. With a background in marine engineering, he has a strong understanding on the shipping, ports, and logistic industries, as well as international trade and investment, and inspired leader who has been recognized for his outstanding performance, commitment, and contributions in related fields of expertise, such as marine engineering, management, and international commerce. After 30 plus years of experience in the private sector, heading the transformation of Colombo Dockyard PLC to international reputed shipbuilder as its MD and CEO, he joined the public sector as a technical advisor to the Minister of Development Strategies and International Trade of Sri Lanka. In addition, he has served in the Board of Investment Sri Lanka, initially as a board member and subsequently as its chairman. He has served in many national level committees, task forces, and boards of public institutions, universities, and other tertiary and vocational educational institutions. He is a marine engineer and naval architect, a fellow of the Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka, a fellow of the Institute of Marine Engineering Scientists and Technologists UK, and a founder fellow of the Institute of Chartered Professional Managers of Sri Lanka. Currently, he is functioning as the Executive Director of Lanka Data Foundation, a visiting member of the Faculty of Graduate Studies and Research of the Slit University, an advisor and a council member of the SLTC Research University, a council member of the Institute of Commercial Law and Practice, and a member of the nomination board of the CCC ICLP IADR Center, Sri Lanka. Over to you, sir. The podium is yours.
Thank you very much, Engineer Neela Besekara, Executive Secretary of the institution, for that lengthy introduction. President of the ISL, distinguished past presidents, members of the family of late engineer B.D. Rampala, council members, Executive Secretary and the Deputy Executive Secretary, distinguished invitees, friends and colleagues. There's a narrative that our president gave on engineer B.D. Rampala as a doyen of engineering. At the outset, I would like to recognize engineer B.D. Rampala, in whose memory this oration is dedicated, as a great personality. An engineer who contributed immensely to the CGR and to the nation. Also as a leader who transformed CGR. His role in CGR is undisputed. His era is undisputedly recognized as the golden era of CGR. I consider it a privilege and an honor to deliver this memorial oration for the second time. and would like to thank the Mechanical Engineering Sectional Committee, especially the current chairman, Engineer Ruwan Nagahavatta, and the immediate past chairman, Engineer Timira Godakumbura, who happened to be one of my work colleagues at Colombo Dockyard. Much has been spoken on the achievements of the late engineer B.D. Rampala. This is the 20th memorial oration. And I only endorse all the statements made, expressed at successive memorial orations by many illustrious engineers. But my purpose today is a little different. My objective is not to talk much about his achievements, but more about to look at his achievements from a different perspective. It is not the actions or transactions what he did. What enabled him to do that? How did he do that? And probably, why did he do that? He was an engineer par excellence. I would like to categorize him as a versatile professional, not just a professional. I'll elaborate on that a little later. A pragmatic, transformational leader. True, we as engineers certainly would like to recognize him as one of our own people, an engineer. But he was beyond that. These are some of the transactions he did, which our president lucidly also orchestrated. But I look at him when he inherited the CGR. I think he inherited an outdated and stagnated railway. He confronted with multiple challenges. I'll go into details a little bit later. Technology, efficiency, safety, and escalating operating costs. Those are areas that he had to challenge as an engineer. The competition was from emerging road transportation. Sri Lanka is not India, not China, not the Soviet Union. It's only 250 kilometers. To survive, you had to compete. Now, if you wanted to, you all talk about his transformation. Naturally, it requires a lot of capex, capital expenditure. But this was just the beginning of independent Sri Lanka. No longer funds would come from the Commonwealth or the Great Britain or UK. To start off the Ceylon Railway, the company was floated in London with a issued capital of 1 million sterling pounds, if my numbers are correct. Probably Priyal may be able to correct that if not. He had to shift from goods, railway that carried goods, to goods and passengers. Big shift in strategy. That was not just transactions. That was a comprehensive transformation. And that's why I categorize him as transformational. Now, what is the technology he brought in? Coal and steam. Coal as the source of energy and steam engines were transformed to diesel hydraulic. It's quite a different ball game. It's a new technical challenge that had to be undertaken, not just changing the engine of the train. As the president said, the signaling system had to change from mechanical to color lights. The heavier, faster trains required improvements in tracks, and more than the tracks, the bridges and the curves and the gradients, which is unique sometimes to Sri Lanka. He had to bring a centralized traffic control system. So no small task for an engineer to deal with in terms of technology. But that's not all. We see that he brought in efficiency to railway. He brought in reliability to railway. He brought in safety, which was of paramount importance if passengers are going to be using the railway. He brought in comfort to passengers. Now, above all, railway became the affordable transportation. If prices were too high, again, we will not use railway. So look at the challenges that he had to confront. Within railway, he brought in a satisfied, disciplined, committed workforce, without which you can't achieve these things. They were not Britishers. They were Sri Lankans. As same as today. He has to convert competition from transport, the road, to co-petition. Today it is a buzzword in business. But 1950s, it was not thought about. Not spoken in management, particularly in this part of the world. What is the co-petition? Establishing the Ceylon Transport Board and probably sorry, I run a little faster than I want. A unified transport system in Sri Lanka. He went into backward integration. Workshops for local manufacture of spare parts and components. You would see it in Yakkala, Enderamulla, and other areas, many workshops, foundry, etc., forge shop. Established hardware corporation. Introduced new services, express trains, observation coaches. Least but not last, local names for the train. Because he inherited the colonial railway. The sentiments of an independent Sri Lanka was different. Essentially, the CGR that engineer B.D. Rampala left when he finished in 1969 was totally different to what he inherited. Hence, he was predominantly transformational. Series of transactions, yes, but leading to a significant transformation, for which he was recognized, as the president said, the finest diesel engineer in South Asia by the Institute of Locomotive Engineers UK in 1959 or 56, whatever the year. I read it at 59. And bestowed with the MBE, member of the British Empire, by none other than the King George VI in 1960. Then he was not, probably he was the DMR. And he was an illustrious past president of the Institute of Engineers Sri Lanka. I read somewhere that those days, the annual sessions of the ISL used to be, the chief guest used to be the head of the state. On one occasion, due to some urgency, the head of the state couldn't make it. And the council and the president had no difficulty in selecting a person who could be invited to replace the head of the state, and that was engineer B.D. Rampala. Such was his recognition. He is an engineer par excellence, synonymous with the golden era of CGR. Certainly a personality befitting to be recognized as a versatile, professional, and a pragmatic transformational leader. Like I said, my focus is not on what engineer Rampala achieved, but how, what enabled him, how he managed to do it. I always had this question, and I've been somewhat vocal on this. Are leaders born or are they made? I know there's a huge debate on this. There's no final conclusion. But I tend to believe that all of us are born with some innate know-how, but a lot of things we learn over our life. General trend also is to focus leadership or look at leadership from a position of power. For someone to become a leader, he must be someone. But I think it should be not who we are, but what we are. B.D. Rampala, with all due respect to him and not to cast any doubt of his many accomplishments, may I say that was an ordinary village lad, born to a middle-class family and not necessarily a born leader. Then how did he transform from that village lad to the doyen of engineering, the man synonymous with the golden era of CGR? I see 5 distinct drivers. The number one is understanding. I'll go a bit more detail into that understanding. I think that is the core. Probably something that is missing today. Number 2 is values. Number 3 is competences. Not just skills, but competences. Number 4 is the worldview, which matters a lot. Because you develop the understanding based on your worldview. Last but not least, in my thinking, it is confronting reality. We engineers are good at confronting reality when it comes to our work. Whether it is civil engineering, you take the terrain, the ground conditions, you design the piling to suit all that and the loading that is necessary. When it is electricity, similar approach. When it is mechanical, similar approach. But unfortunately, many of us, including engineers, when we try to manage something or lead something, we fail to confront the reality. So that is the 5th important driver. Let's look at how engineer Rampala managed to do this thing. Probably a deep dive. I'm a mariner, so I like to go deeper. Not to sink, I like to float, but to see what is under. Let's take understanding. What did engineer Rampala understand? In a sense, he understood railway as a system. It is not just wagons and locomotives and tracks. It is a unified system. CGR he inherited, as I said, was a symbol of colonialism, industrialization, and mercantilism. President himself said, at the behest of the mercantilists and the planters, CGR came, not because people in Sri Lanka wanted. He aptly said, the ordinary people in Sri Lanka saw it as Anguru Kaka, Vatura Bibi, Colombo Duana, Yakadayaka. It was a devil in their mind, literally. The railway inherited did not necessarily fit independent Ceylon. So he understood that a change of positioning of CGR is necessary. And that happened. He understood the people factor, which many fail to understand. Internal employees, external, your customers, of course, suppliers, etc. But the key is customers. Technology, especially emergent technologies of the new world. He took over railway after the Second World War. So it's a different time. He understood the context at which he operates, which means the reality, what is possible and what is doable. Never dreamt of doing something not possible and not doable. He had a holistic view, the interconnectedness, interdependent, and the interplay within the railway ecosystem. That's what I say, understanding is the core. Let me further go deeper. Idea of Ceylon Railway or Ceylonese Railway was mooted in 1842. And railway per se commenced, I think, in August 1858 by cutting the first sod of sand somewhere in Colombo. But globally, this is at the ebb of first industrial revolution. I'm coming to that in a while. The first industrial revolution started in 1784. We are talking 1842, 1858, almost 100 years after. Steam engine was established or came into being in 1784. And with that came the first industrial revolution and production system. Capitalism enabled rapid expansion of world economy. There's a tremendous growth after the Second World War. Industrialization and international trade. So for the British capitalist, this was another opportunity to expand the Ceylon Railway. That's why they floated a company, bought shares in that company, or rather invested into that company, £1 million. You may not necessarily know, 1842 also denotes some other phenomenal transportation first. That was the first mail steamer from London to Calcutta and Singapore. Port of Colombo was developed. Before Port of Colombo, it was Trincomalee and Galle. By then, Port of Colombo has been chosen as the port. That is why the Anguru Yaka had to come to Colombo. Yakada Yaka. Sigi was built in response to an orchestrated demand by mercantilists and planters, with whom I had the privilege to work as the Secretary General of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, the Planters Association, and most of the mercantilists of that era, and later at the Employers Federation. But they not only brought railway to Sri Lanka, British also started connecting all the major cities, creating a competition. So there are parallel developments that happen. So one who heads CGR had to confront with these realities. The most important part is understanding the people factor. Young Rampala was a steadfast commuter of railway. To Nalanda and Ananda from Panipitiya, he daily came on railway. So there was no need for him to anyone what a perspective to railway is, because he saw that from very yonder years. He also interacted with employees as a special apprentice in the CME, then as an improver in Great India Peninsular Railway, 34 to 36, thereafter in roles in railway, rising up to the GMR. He knew almost everyone, every role that railway has. He understood the bureaucracy and the politics. Working in many committees, he understood that railway is not just a transport system, but railway means it's a means to improve livelihood and lifestyles of people. I read somewhere that he used to say whenever the railway moves to a city or a truck moves to a city, the entire livelihood as well as lifestyle changes of the people around them. So railway is not just to run, but to change the lifestyles of people. So you have to understand that people factor. Goods to markets. Imports to internal markets, cities, and to people, particularly energy to people. That is the era that transportation started in Sri Lanka. So you had to supply diesel. And most of the diesel depots are connected with railway. So you couldn't do those developments without railway moving to those areas. Then the produce to port and to the world market. Cost effectiveness was the key. So you can't select any technology. You have to select the technology, optimum technology that is implementable and which is cost efficient. People moved to cities and work. People in Aludgama, Galle, come to work to Colombo on train. I had many friends at school, and Engineer Shavindranath Fernando will remember, who came on train to Maradana and walked to Nalanda from Veyangoda, Gampaha, etc., suburbs. So what was key? I underscore efficacy, safety, reliability, comfort, and affordability. He understood this and he delivered that. He was able to bring that aspect into railway. I was talking about the industrial revolutions. Technology, as I see it, probably it is not visible enough. Steam mechanical production came into being in 1784. That is the first industrial revolution. The small arrow-like graph on this thing. And the second industrial revolution is electricity. The Cincinnati slaughterhouse in America coming in 1870. Production lines, assembly lines, division of labor, Frederick Taylor, all that happened with the second industrial revolution. Now his era is somewhere just beyond that. When he was leaving the third industrial revolution, electronics and IT systems, PLCs, the Medicon 084, the first PLC came into being in 1969. And we are stuck here while the world is moving forward. Today we are talking about Industry 4.0 or fourth industrial revolution, which deals with cyber-physical systems. So humongous changes taking place. You have to confront this. I'm still wondering, where would AI take us in the future? Rather than going on the history of railway, the machine age, which created a mechanistic worldview from great philosophers, Hume, etc., you had the Industrial Revolution, IR1, IR2. Mechanization became the key. So mechanical engineers like us had a lot to do. But that is no more there. You'll hardly see any job opportunities. So people like us luckily moved to management. Then came the systems age. Systems worldview. That is due to communication revolution. I'm not going to go into how it happened. And that brought in automation. But I'm sorry to say, if you take CGR today, are we anywhere into automation? They again stagnate. So probably a new age is looming. He understood the context, I said. Local, post-independent, local socio-political and economic environment. You couldn't do everything what the Britishers did. It was a different system, different people. For example, local industry, employment generation, reducing cost of imported spare parts. So he moved into those areas. I said the post-World War II new world was different. Colonialism and British gradually losing their dominance in the world. America taking a lead. America was looked as the free world. So Engineer Rampala didn't only rely on Britain. As you know, he engaged with US, Europe, Sweden in particular. The centralized traffic control system was from Sweden. Japan and China were just checking at tea. Why not the Soviet Union, where I happened to study subsequently? That became a big technology power at that time and came into Sri Lanka in a big way. I probably need some further research in this thing. So he understood this context very well. He was a product of colonialism, but he moved away from that. He didn't put his foot only there. He shifted, knowing where the world is moving. He had a holistic view. As I said, understood the interconnectedness, interdependency, and interplay of the above four factors. These four factors in isolation will not change CGR. They will do some change, but it will not transform. They have to gel together. They're interconnected. They're interdependent. There's interplay between them. Many people think knowing means understanding. But I reiterate, knowing is not necessarily understanding. There's a nice, very interesting quote from none other than Albert Einstein. Of course, no disrespect meant to anyone. This is his words. I'm only reiterating. He said, any fool can know, but the point is understanding. Food for thought. There are a lot of people who want to seek knowledge. Yes, important. But if you just stop at knowledge, nothing much can be done. You need to understand. I think many live in abstract utopian worlds. I know some of my colleagues here may not necessarily agree with me, but I look at these issues somewhat differently. I suppose I'm free to express what I feel, and subject to correction and subject to challenge. Many want a society free of political influence and interference. For me, this is utopia. You see what is happening in America now. Shavi can explain because he just returned from Houston. Midterm election just finished. Can we have a society without influence or interference of politics? I doubt. I don't have hope on that. Many believe government as the sole source of funds. It is now a bottomless pit, particularly in Sri Lanka. We forego sustainability vis-a-vis techno-commercial feasibility. And we put a little bit of sustainability, like just to make it nice. Just as icing on the cake. But we don't go deep into that. We don't focus on details. We go by fads and buzzwords. For example, we talk about technology transfer. This was a challenge for me at Colombo Dockyard. How do we transfer technology? Easier said than done. It's a different topic, different subject. But it's not easy, let me tell you. We look at very strict management control with our trade unions. In a democracy, you want a democracy, but no trade unions, management to have full control. For me, this is also utopian. We believe in predominance of rule-centric organization culture and not people-centric organization culture. These are some of the things that I confronted while working at Colombo Dockyard. Some of the colleagues here may remember, recollect, reminiscence. Values, the core of professionalism. Without values, you can't talk about professionalism. That's why I like to recognize Engineer Rampala as a versatile professional. He had the right values, ethics to manage behavior. Late Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore was questioned how he built Singapore. He said 4 things: good governance, meritocracy, anti-corruption, and the last but not least, pragmatism. How can you do anti-corruption without values and ethics? Whether it is public sector, whether it is private sector, whether it is politicians or whether it is bureaucrats, even ordinary citizens. Competence says a sine qua non for versatility. Many tend to believe qualifications equal knowledge. To some degree, yes. So therefore, overt recognition is there for a degree over acquired competences. Now, knowledge and know-how are 2 different things. Knowledge is explicit and relatively easy to learn and understand and grasp and More than often it comes in codes, mathematics, formula, etc. But know-how is tacit, is learned through experience, difficult to grasp. Now, this is a big difference that I see in engineer Rampala. He came through the mill. Skill is ability to do something. But skill alone is not competence. In my mind, competence encompasses skill, knowledge, know-how, and much more. For example, creativity. I read somewhere while researching on engineer Rampala going on the express train to Galle, and then some problem with the connections. Big problem, you can't return. You have to abandon the train. You get hold of some coir ropes, creates an insulation using coir rope, get the engine driver to connect the wires. And the British engineer who came was shocked. How can you do that? And take the train back to Colombo. Now that's nowhere in the books. I'm speaking in front of erudite electrical engineers. Skill, competence encompasses. Two individuals with identical qualifications may have varying competences. Both are equally qualified, but whilst one may be a competent manager and a leader, the other utterly incompetent. Do I have to give explanations? We just witness it as a nation. Versatility talks about full range of motion. Our times and times of many of these personnel sitting in the front rows, specialization was the key. Today, it's different. Versatility is the key. I think that was one of my last training presentations at DocCap. Be versatile. That is doing many things competently. When I talk about this to the universities, they say, these guys lacks a little bit of soft skills. It's not soft skills. So they say, let's do Toastmastering. Yeah, that adds a skill, but not competence. You may be able to say something better, but you must say the right thing, or relatively right thing. Having varied uses of many functions. So as you grow in the organization, from special apprentice to GMR, your role is different. Your role is different. I did it myself. It happened to me. So you need to fit into these new roles. If it is a drama or a play, you are playing multiple roles across the play. So a joker cannot be the king. Different roles, no? Having varied uses of many functions, that is versatility, changeable or inconstant. You can do one thing now and suddenly something totally different the other time. You're not regimental, capable of shifting freely in all directions. So versatility speaks about your values, attitudes, accumulated knowledge and know-how, the way you think, way you plan, way you do, the role you play. Rather, what you are in the context of what you are doing, who you are. Engineer Rampala didn't need to be recognized as the GMR to do what he did. He himself was recognized to do what he was doing. That's the difference. The last but not least, the worldview. That is how we see the world. I brought two worldviews, which is quite widely accepted. The mechanistic worldview and the systems worldview. Rampala believed in a systems worldview, in my opinion. Now that affects our thinking and hence understanding, and affect what we do. Important to develop a collective, broad-based worldview. I think we, even as an institution, we must develop that broad-based worldview. What do we believe? What do we stand for? Of course, individuals, we have different thinking, but as an institution, we need to harness it and bring it together and stand together as one institution when we go out. Attempted to do that at the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. When you have about 600-700 big conglomerates, corporates, companies as your members, you can imagine very difficult to bring them to a common thinking. This is the budget time. So if you want to make in the budget proposal, one says, do this, other says, don't do it. So during my tenure, with the blessings of the council and the leadership, we wanted to do something different. Of course, we were member-centric, but let's be nation-centric. For a moment, we'll forget the members. Let's be nation-centric. So we came up with two principles. What is good for the country is good for the industry. So any proposal that comes, we look at through that perspective, that glass. Is it good for the country? Then it is good for the industry. Then we said, what is good for the industry is good for the member. So when some issues comes, there is a huge debate. Then finally we say, let's look at through this perspective. I don't know how long that thinking continues, probably one way to look at it. Now, when we were talking about Engineer Rampala's transformation, I look at family and environmental conditions certainly did a lot. And that's why I can see 3 generations of people attending even today. The great grandson also, I am told, is here, reminiscing his great grandfather. The family matters. That doesn't mean that you have to be born to a particular family, a clan, privileged, elite, etc. But the family as the core of your upbringing matters. Schools and teachers. Of course, Ananda and Nalanda would have done a lot of value addition in building Engineer Rampala. Undoubtedly, apprenticing at CME, CGR gave him enormous amount of upbringing, and so on and so forth. But I came across this interesting, what is called competency canvas, from none other than engineer Professor Ajanta Dharmasiri, who is the director of PIM today. Now he look at competency from 3 perspectives. One is knowledge that we spoke about. We spoke about coded explicit knowledge, which majority of us are focused on. but he also recognized experiential tacit know-how. He looks at behaviors, bottom, feeling, that is affective, acting, behavioral. When you act, that has a behavioral impact. Thinking, which is a cognitive, that's a behavioral aspect of competence. Then he talks about skills. Now he breaks that into 3 areas: speciality, technical, which we are good at, but interpersonal, some of us are not very good at. That's something you need to develop. But most importantly, analytical and envisioning, but conceptual. I add creativity into that. So this is a good model that I came across while thinking about this and going beyond. Just last couple of slides. I know time is running out. Transaction versus transformation. We tend to believe managers are transactional and leaders are transformational. They look at different things. Managers focus on the task, thrives on equilibrium, believes in self-expertise, rules-based. Whereas leaders believes in change, thrives on disequilibrium, believes in a team. Today we are talking about collaborative wisdom. One person's brain is not enough to challenge the complex problems that we have. So we need to put several brains together and co-create, not independently create. Probably Engineer Rampala could at that era, but today's complexity is so vast, you need co-creation. So we call collaborative wisdom and co-creation. Value-based rules for guidance can be changed. Rules are not there, not carved in stone. Creativity. That's why he says, I take the responsibility, you run the rail. Rule doesn't say you can use Koyoro, but the rail runs if it needed be. Understand the whole. The key word again is understand. And the whole, not part. We are good at looking at part. So, engineering the transformation, that's a challenge. Where we were, I heard that when the Colombo port was established, 50,000 bullock carts, that is 100,000 cattle, and 50,000 cart drivers arrived to the port daily. The railway changed that. But we ended up with that. Third picture on the top today. Steam came, diesel came. You're talking about light rail and embarking on revolution in the urban public transportation. We have an engineer's picture there, my good friend. But we ended up with power cuts, fuel is rationed, restricted imports, bad public transport, high cost of living, rampant corruption, mismanagement all over, absence of accountability, absence of professionalism, endless tough battle. These problems, in my view, are systemic and endemic. And that's the challenge for us. If you are learning from Engineer Rampala, we need to challenge that. So I just want to end with a bit of a note. The engineer of the future applies scientific analysis and holistic synthesis to develop sustainable solutions that integrate social, environmental, cultural, and economic systems. It's not what I said. This is Professor Bernard Amadei, University of Colorado, Boulder, USA. So how do you build the values? Many young engineering professionals we produce. How do you change their worldview? Not change. How can they look at the world correctly? How can they be creative? How can they understand? How can they be environmentally focused? Where will they get the know-how? Last but not least, the values. So while dedicating my speech to late engineer B.D. Rampala, I would like to leave this as a challenge, transforming a young professional from nobody to somebody. Somebody that can take Sri Lanka forward. Perhaps it's time to think of developing many Rampalas. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Engineer Mangalayapa, for your highly informative speech. Let's try to be transformational leaders in our own territories, and let's follow the footsteps of late engineer B.D. Rampala. Having said that, let me invite our President, Engineer Dr. Kamal Laksiri, to give away the token of appreciation to our speaker today. Thank you very much, President. Now we have a special event here. Our family members of late engineer Rampala, they wanted to pay their gratitude, whatever, to our ISL probably. So they wanted therefore to give a speech. I now cordially invite Mr. Malinda Vijayavikrama, the great grandson of Engineer B.D. Rampala, to deliver a speech. Over to you.
Good evening, everyone. I'll make this pretty sweet and short. I'm sure we all agree that this program was indeed very informative, and I really personally found it very inspirational. I am Malinda Vijayavikram, great-grandson of the late engineer B.D. Rampala. Let me take this opportunity on behalf of the Rampala family to thank you for the invitation and for organizing this event. A big thank you to the guest speaker, Engineer P.B. Yapa, for the interesting speech delivered today. Our appreciation goes out to the President, CEO, Chairman, Mechanical Engineering Sectional Committee, and the administration of the Institute of Engineers, Sri Lanka. And of course, to all those who participated and contributed in numerous ways to make this event a success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mahinda Vijayavikrama. To wind up the session, let me now invite Engineer Ruwan Nagawatha, the Chairman, Mechanical Engineering Sectional Committee, to give away the vote of thanks. What is?
Good evening, family members of Engineer B.D. Rampala, President IESL, our guest speaker, Engineer Mangalayapa, the past presidents of IESL, council members, members of IESL, and ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor to deliver the vote of thank in this occasion. And I would like to mention, this is not to compare the great engineer B.D. Rampala. I was born in Morakatia, Kottawa, studied in Kottawa, went to Nalanda College, went to Moratuwa University, and graduated as a mechanical engineer. I'm a drop of ocean of his knowledge and his commitment to the country, but there's some similarity that I would like to share with you, right? Uh, and I would like to thank whole family members of Engineer Rampala for accepting our humble invitation and coming to this event with all the generation you have in the family and supporting this event to be success. And next, I would like to thank our guest speaker, Engineer Mangalayappa, for accepting our invitation and delivering this oration lecture. I personally felt it is our privilege to hear from you, who had transformed the shipbuilding industry in Sri Lanka to a world-class venture during your leadership at Dockyard. So your lecture was very inspirational and one of the best lectures which I come across in recent past. And it is one of the best wake-up call for all the engineers, all the people who had been here, for us how to transform our life into a more successful way. And thank you very much, sir, for your commitment in this lecture and the time you consume on this one. Then I would like to thank Engineer Dr. Kamal Laksiri, the President of IESL, the CEO, and for their commitment in organizing this event with all the staff of IESL and making this event a success. Further, I would like to thank Mechanical Engineering Sectional Committee, all the members who had been come here, who had been joined here on online, supporting this event and helping me on the onset of this event. Finally, I would like to thank all the IESL staff, Chamila and everybody here who had been supporting in numerous ways to communicating with the team and getting this event success. So I here conclude my vote of thank and request all of you to gather after this event. There's a fellowship and a dinner, and we welcome you all for the event. Thank you.